Taking part in all of that today is Goldy Hyder, who's the president and CEO of the Business Council of Canada. Before he heads to the summit, he's stopping on our sofa. Great to see you, Goldy.
Nice way to start the morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming in. How are you approaching today?
Cautiously optimistic. I think it's an opportunity for us as Canadians, first and foremost, to wake up to the reality that the world is changing, but the United States' relationship with Canada may have fundamentally changed. And I don't know if we can just pretend we're going to go back to some laurel years.
Fundamentally, irrevocably,
I think it has less to do with who's in power. I mean, the Democratic administration was equally tough on Canada, and in some cases deservedly so, because we were laggards on defense. They see us as weak in other areas. They're clearly interested in what we have. There's no question about that. And so it's an opportunity for Canada and Canadians what I hope today is about as well is just to kind of lay down the arms. There's a lot of internal battles that we have here because we've had the luxury of doing that. Now, you spoke earlier about interprovincial trade barriers. We're thinking about permitting. We're thinking about, how are we going to get access to those critical minerals that everybody wants. I am living long enough to see the issue of pipelines return all across this country. Something
even
we
being
have
considered in Quebec.
Well, in Quebec. And the thing about facts, Heather, is they just stay the same and they keep coming back. And so we can't lose this moment. There's no point, I could spend a lot of time saying I told you so or we told you so. Let's just move on, look forward to how we seized it to help the Canadian economy be successful and resilient, which is what I think a lot of today's discussions are to be about.
You were mentioning as we were getting set for this conversation, you'll be leading some breakout sessions for discussion. But at the end of today, do you expect there will be something concrete to add to the roadmap?
Hard to say. We're obviously in a situation where there'll be another prime minister in a period of less than 4 or 5 weeks here, and then there'll be a federal election. But it is an opportunity for the stakeholders that are in the room. We stay. Governments come and go. We stay. I'm going in with an open mind and the view that it's an opportunity to, as I said, break down old battles. Like this is about business and labor and small business and Indigenous groups and others coming together to say, we're going to agree to disagree about some things. It's okay. We're Canadian. We know how to do that. But let's also look forward on what this moment is about. And what this is about is to say, you're on your own. You have to figure out how to navigate not only the relationship with America and North America, but your relationship with the rest of the world. So it's a very serious time, but if there's one thing I've always had confidence in, it's Canadians. I think Canadians are a smart group of people. Given the opportunity to engage in this discussion and dialogue and debate, we will get through it and we will get to a better place. And yes, it requires leadership, so I applaud the effort today, but we're going to have to sustain it long beyond today.
The leadership to this point was able to secure the reprieve, so a 30-day pause now. Is there anything in this time period that you think Canada should change, tweak, toughen in its approach to securing, either another pause or maybe the end of this tariff threat in 30 days' time, given this pause?
Yeah, I don't believe it's the end of anything at all. I think we have to approach with the view that what took place was really an opening salvo, and there's still an agenda here, and the agenda here is disputable on the part of many. I still feel it's an agenda to help America's economy grow, and more power to them. That's how it's supposed to be. We just wish it wasn't done in a protectionist way, one that violates the USMCA, an approach that kind of puts North America against itself, when we should be working together to take on the rest of the world. It's expected that in a matter of time here, the attention will shift to this report that the USTR has been commissioned to do. That's their trade representative, where he's focused on the deficits. We have to believe him. I mean, he did say border and fentanyl was an issue, and we wondered whether that was a real issue. Turned out to be a real issue, even if it's just politics. That's important to them. We've done a lot with the government's done a lot, and we've been certainly communicating the importance of getting the border secure and visually showing that it's secure, making sure that we're raiding those fentanyl labs and toughening the criminal code. Do what you need to do, and frankly, not for them, for us. It's also exposing Canadians to the downside of these drugs.
I ask for a couple of reasons. One, we've heard from a number of the political leaders saying now is really these 30 days sort of to continue flooding the zone for people to speak to any contacts they have in the United States, anyone with influence and power on the Trump administration. This is a time to continue those messages. But I'm wondering if there's any different message to convey. You were recently in Mexico, I know, because following your social media accounts. And we watched how President Claudia Sheinbaum dealt with Donald Trump, seemingly very strong in the face of that threat as well to that country. Is there anything Canada should be taking from Mexico's approach?
Well, we're certainly in this together. I have a lot of respect for President Sheinbaum. Met her on a few occasions, and she's been very clear and forceful and defending Mexico's national interests as she's expected to do. She's been able to get the eyes off her. When you think about it, it was always about Mexico. It was always about build the wall. It was always about the immigrants from there. And somehow it's shifted over here. They do work much better together there. I think there's a concentrated effort there to bring groups together and work towards the national interest of Mexico. She's also been very strategic in not revealing what she would do. To this day, nobody really knows what her counters would be. She has addressed the president's issues head on, stopping the caravans, accepting Mexican migrants that are going to be coming back into the United States, preparing her economy to accept millions of people potentially. That's what he wants to hear. But she's also standing up very strongly for the USMCA, for trade, for making sure that we're not carving each other up here. Because, as I said, the battle is not in North America. It's North America against the rest of the world.
Speaking of the rest of the world, I was just talking last hour with Canada's High Commissioner in the UK, Ralph Goodale, was on the program, and there is a renewed interest in and push toward going back to enhanced bilateral trade talks with the UK as part of an overall strategy of diversifying. But that's not a quick and easy fix, is it? I mean, that's going to be one of the topics today at the summit. Just how realistic is, if 76% of Canada's exports go to the United States, how do you make up for that quickly, easily elsewhere? Well,
again, as I said about facts, they are what they are. In fact, we're going next week to accompany the 13 premiers to Washington to continue to make the case that says, yes, you've raised a bunch of issues. Yes, we should find a way forward to address some of the points that are being raised, but there's a process with which that should happen. The USMCA, its renewal. Why don't we sit down and figure out what your concerns are? So we have to engage. There's no question that for the foreseeable future, for hundreds of years, America is going to be Canada's most important economic partner. We can't get away from that. No different than Australia has to have the reality of having China as its number one economic. We are where we are. We live with whom we live with. So we have to manage that that existence. But also, Canada is supposed to be a free trading nation. We have free trade outside of this country very well. We have to fix it inside this country as an example of what we're able to do and leverage our strengths. You mentioned UK. We have 99% free trade coming back and forth with them. We have disputes, as we always do, as countries do, disagree on some things. We need to bring those things to the table, whether it's, the protectionism or so forth, and address them. But remember, we're in a country that doesn't allow for trade inside. So we have to get that done right.
That's first.
And I can't imagine how you can go with clean hands to anywhere else and lecture others about their protectionism when you're living in a country full of interprovincial trade barriers. We met with Minister Anand yesterday, and she's telling us that a lot of progress has been made with the premiers, and that in the course of the next 4 weeks or so, we can expect some movement. Because if not now, when? And really, what are we talking about? Mutually recognizing each other's, rules and regulations. This is not a European Union. This is one country. We should be able to do that when Europe has been able to do it with 27 countries. So I'm optimistic about that as well.
Okay. Keep some room in your interview card from Washington. Love to speak to you when you're there next week. Thank you so much for the time today. And, of course, we'll be covering the summit very closely. Goldy Hyder, the head of the Business Council of Canada, here on CBC Morning Live. Thanks again.